thank you to Farmhouse Project, to Bethel Woods, to Catchecton Firehouse. If I had one more of those signature drinks, I would have been starting to sing, me and Bobby McGee, and you don't want that. Bethel Woods is not where I live. Bethel is not where I live, although I guess sometimes if you ask my wife Joyce, she might disagree with that. It is not quite my second home, but it is often my third home. And it is a wonderful, wonderful third home to be. And I especially want to again thank them for providing us with this place. It's preserved now. I know of no other, and if somebody can help me out here, if you know of any other National Historic Site that is dedicated to or is a site because of peace, love, and understanding, please tell me. There aren't any others that I know of. So this is special in a lot of different ways, and it's even more special because of that, I think. So I was 19 years old in 1969. That means I was born in 1950. That means I was born 5 years after World War II ended in the Pacific. And the reason I go back like that is because the museum here at Bethel Woods is a place that puts the event of Woodstock in context. The event Woodstock could not have happened the way it happened, would not probably have happened if it had not been for everything that came before it. So let me put myself in context. Here I am, born in 1950. My father was a Seabee in the Pacific, about some former Seabees, perhaps. And perhaps I wouldn't even be here because, of course, the United States was about to invade Japan, but for certain atomic bombs, Japan surrendered. So my father came home. He already had 2 children, an older brother and sister, and I come along in 1950. And he got a job, like a lot of other fortunate veterans who came home, with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers in New York City, in Queens. And my brother, PJ, introduced me to rock and roll, Elvis Presley, doo-wop, when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, and I really liked that. And then, of course, Ed Sullivan introduced us all, or many of us, to the Beatles in 1964. And then WNEW FM comes along, 67 or so, and provides me and thousands of other young kids living in the New York metropolitan area. I told you where I'm not from. I am from Cliffside Park, New Jersey. Cliffside Park, New Jersey is where part of Palisades Amusement Park used to be. And some of you got sick on their cyclone, whatever. So it's 1967, and I'm listening to the music that I've come to like, because as my brother introduced me to rock and roll, and Ed Sullivan introduced me to the Beatles, and Bob Dylan introduced the Beatles to cannabis, that's another story. That's a much longer tour of the museum. I'm introduced to long-playing records, and I'm introduced to long-playing records that WNEW is playing, and that Rolling Stone magazine, I should genuflect for that magazine as well, is introduced all kinds of music to me. When the Beatles came out with Rubber Soul in 1965, there was a typo on the back that I found. I'm 15 years old, and I'm in an English class in high school, and I found a typo, which was really cool. I hadn't even known what the word typo meant until I was in high school. And it had George Harrison on Norwegian Wood playing, and they misspelled guitar. They spelled guitar S-I-T-A-R. And I said, that's crazy. Well, of course, the point being is that the Beatles introduced a lot of young baby boomers to Indian music, and in a more general sense, to world music. And I will admit it right here in front of all of you, or if there were 500,000 of you here today, I would admit it to them as well, that I drank all the Beetlejuice that there was. If the Beatles played it, it was good. I didn't have to understand it. But that was another thing that happened in 1965 and afterwards. Rock and roll, some rock and roll, went off in a direction that you didn't understand the lyrics anymore, or you had to think about what the lyrics meant. When the Beatles said, "I love you," you know, "I want to hold your hand, she loves you," well, that's pretty straightforward. I know what that meant. But when they sang in Norwegian Wood that the girl brought him home, oh, okay. Now, I had been to first base, okay? I had been to first base. I'd heard about second base. There was a rumor about third base. And home runs, as a Yankee fan, was something that Mickey Mantle took care of. I had, you know, that was for biology class, another place, another time. But and then they break out some wine in Norwegian Wood. And I said, I better close my bedroom door because my parents can't listen to this. And then she says it's time for bed. I'm really happy I closed the door. And then he crawls off to sleep in the bath. Oh, I did not think that's where this was going. I really didn't understand, but I didn't think that's where it was going to go. And then he gets up in the morning. This bird has flown. I'm a white kid living in suburban Cliffside Park. I know nothing of British slang, so I'm assuming that the woman had a bird cage and that somebody opened the bird cage and the bird got out. And okay, I don't know why John is talking about a bird getting out of a bird cage, but this is the Beatles, so it's cool. And then he lights a fire. Isn't it good? Norwegian Wood. You don't have to raise your hand if you know, but talk to me later. Why is he burning the furniture? I don't know today why he's burning the Norwegian Wood of the apartment. So he's doing that. All right, it's 1969 now. And I'm listening to WNEW.
Scott Muni at WNEW FM, Metro Media Stereo, New York. The Woodstock Music and Art Fair, the 3-day Aquarian Exposition, will be held at White Lake in the town of Bethel, Sullivan County, New York. And on Friday, August 15th, you will hear and see Joan Baez, Arlo Guthrie, Tim Harden, Richie Havens, incredible string band, Ravi Shankar, Sweetwater. Saturday, August 16th, Canned Heat, Creedence Clearwater, Grateful Dead, Keith Hartley, Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, Mountain, Santana, and The Who. On Sunday, August 17th, The Band, Jeff Beck, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Iron Butterfly, Joe Cocker, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Jimi Hendrix, The Moody Blues, and Johnny Winter. Tickets are available by mail or at your local ticket agency for any 1 day at $7, any 2 days, $14, and for all 3 days, $18. A special 2-day ticket.
Those are amazing prices. I understand that. But, and I hope I'm not being too politically incorrect when I say this, but that's because there was no Ticketmaster. Because you know if there was Ticketmaster, then they would have been $107 each day, because they have those fees. So a lot of those groups were like, oh, holy, I gotta hear this. So I talked to my friends, many of whom were into this music. Now understand this, not every 19-year-old or thereabouts was into this music. A lot of people, when they saw Jimi Hendrix, thought it was disgusting. When Jimi Hendrix, for 6 weeks in 1967, opened for the Monkees, the parents who had brought their kids there to see the Monkees were hiding their kids' faces so that they didn't see what Jimmy was doing on the stage. That tour for Jimmy lasted about 6 weeks. So not everybody was into what you and I are sitting here on the field of, but I was. And so I asked my friends, as I say, would you like to go? And they said, yeah, we want to go. So Richie Hale asked his mom, Richie Hale's 19. He's a sophomore in college. Richie Hale asked his mom, and his mom said no, so Richie couldn't go. Tony said, yeah, I'm going to go. Tony and I had been in high school, as with Richie. And my girlfriend at the time, Joyce, she couldn't go. She wasn't allowed to go because she wasn't allowed to stay out overnight with her boyfriend. Apparently 500,000 people and a good friend, Tony, good Italian Catholic friend, Tony, was not enough of a chaperone. So Joyce can't go, but that's okay. We'll drive home on Sunday morning, pick her up, and come back here. That didn't happen, of course, but that's the plan. Okay, so Tony and I get home from work on Friday evening. We did not plan on coming here for Friday. We're both working for the summer. I'm working because I am the son of a father who works for the IBEW. I can get a summer apprenticeship job in construction in New York City. It was an amazing job, great pay. So I wasn't gonna take off, plus the fact that nobody is going to understand if I try to say to them, I'd like to go to a Woodstock festival up there. No, that's not gonna happen. And Tony, he needed the money as well. So we're gonna go up on Saturday. We get home from work on Friday, we're on the phone with each other, and we hear about a lot of traffic up there. I have no idea where up there is. I have my SO paper map, and I'm ready to start looking to see how to get here. So we leave Friday night to get up here for Saturday. That seems to be enough time. And we got close. We coming up from New Jersey, as I say, and we were on the New York Thruway on Friday night when Arlo Guthrie, right over there, is announcing from the stage, the New York Thruway's closed, man. Well, Arlo was having what I refer to nowadays as a very enhanced moment. A lot of people were having very enhanced moments that night. The Thruway was not closed. The Thruway is 45 miles from here. There were lots of roads closed around here, but not that one. So Tony and I came up the Thruway onto 17, the quick way, and came up the quick way, not so quickly, and got close to 17B, and actually got onto 17B, and then things really started to crawl along. And then we just said, let's get out. So we got out of the car, and we went up to some people, and I said, what's going on? There's none of this. Keep that in mind. There's no tweeting from Woodstock Ventures, go home, stay here, yes, we're on, no, we're not. You know, there's none of that. So you're just word of mouth. So we asked some people, and some people were walking toward Monticello on 17B. This is about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And some people were saying, no, I heard it was canceled, man. We're going home. Oh, shit. I had bought tickets. Tony and I had bought tickets, one for Saturday and one for Sunday. So we asked other people, and they said, no, I heard it's on. Oh, okay. We're both college students. Tony was the valedictorian of my high school class, so he's a real, Tony, what do you want to do? I know what we'll do. We'll go in the car and we'll take a nap because we're college students and we have learned how to nap. So we get in the car, we take a nap, we get up in the morning, and what do I take out of the car? Well, I take out of the car a sleeping bag. I take a camera that I've borrowed from Joyce's dad, a 35 millimeter camera, and I take a binoculars that I've also borrowed from Joyce's dad, the most generous person I've ever met in my life. And, yep, I have my money. We'll buy food there. There's plenty of food. I've read the advertisement. There's gonna be plenty of food there. So Tony and I start walking. And every once in a while, we ask, where is it? And they say, just keep walking. And you can't not find the place because everybody's walking basically in the same direction. 17B, we were about where, if you know 17B today, or even then, Cooper's Corner Road, that's about where we pulled off. That's about 7.5 miles away from here. So we started walking. And we get to Hurd Road, and they start sending us up Hurd Road. And we get along Hurd Road, and we take out our Saturday ticket. and we're looking for the person who's going to collect our ticket. But what is very important to remember, and I get the impression that a lot of you know this part of the story already, is that this is not where it was going to happen. Wallkill, New York, by the intersection of 84 and 17, is where it was going to happen. And then 3 weeks before, Wallkill finally, successfully evicted them. Because keep in mind that it was 1969, and a lot of things had been going on in the United States. Not unlike today in terms of the us and them, the red and the blue, although we didn't have the red and blue terms at that time. And we were part of them. And a lot of them didn't want us. And we were very suspicious of them. Paranoia strikes deep into your heart, it will creep. But we kept walking, and we got up to the top of the hill with our ticket in hand. And believe me, this is a little emotional and quite amazing. I've never done this here. And where that gravel road is now, there was no road there, of course, then, and where it curves to the right, Tony and I found an open spot. And we looked down below, and we said, "Do you think there's an open spot down there?" And no, I don't think so. So we said, okay. So we put our sleeping bags down, and we put our tickets back in our pocket. And the reason I tell you about those tickets again is because I put my tickets back in my pocket. I can take my tickets back out today. In a museum tour, I pass this around. If anybody wants to see the tickets later, I can show you over at the table. So Tony and I sat down, and there was a guy sitting in front of me. And this is really odd today for me. The gentleman with the blue shirt right here, would you just hold up your hat? Thank you. The guy sitting in front of me had that hat on. I'm not kidding. Today I sit down behind a guy who has that hat on again, 50 years later. I took a picture of the guy because in 1969, I had never seen a guy with a hat like that before. He also had an umbrella. Not because it was raining, but because it was a beautiful day like this, and it was a parasol. He was protecting his head, or his whole self. So we wait. About noontime, the first band comes on. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through every band. The first band comes on, Quill. Okay, yeah, that's the reaction that I always get. Nobody's ever heard of Quill. It's bad. It's sad. They were invited. They were a decent band out of New England, and they were actually invited early to come here to go around to the locals and to speak to them and to play some free concerts, free little local concerts for them. But nobody knows Quill. Although if you spent the $800-something for the full set, you can hear Quill today. Then, because things are disorganized, I don't know that. All I know is it took me a long time to get here, but I don't realize how backstage, the other side of West Shore Road, is somewhat chaotic. And they ask Country Joe, "Could you please just play for a little while we get the next band set up?" And Joe says, "Yeah, I could do that, but I don't even have a guitar." "We'll find one for you, Joe." And they find a guitar for him. And they hand him a guitar. And he says, "Oh, there's no even a strap on this." They say, "We'll find something for you, Joe." And they find a piece of rope for him. And he gets up and he starts his little acoustic set, and that's kind of okay, you know. It's just him playing an acoustic set. It's not Richie Havens from the day before, certainly. But the last song he does, he gets up in front of 500,000 baby boomers who love Jimi Hendrix, who love the band, who love all of the musicians that they've heard of that are going to be here. And he calls out, I'm going to be polite, don't worry. He calls out, "Give me an F!" And 500,000 people yell out F. Now, this wasn't a spelling bee, I knew that. And then he continues with U, and then C. And I knew we weren't going to spell fuchsia. I knew that. And after we spell all 4 letters, he says, "What's that spell?"
And 500,000 people yelled out what that spelled. And he said, "What's that spell?" And so we told him again, because maybe he didn't hear us the first time. And he did it 3 more times. And I turned to Tony and I said, "This is gonna be cool." And then the people in front of us turned around and said, "Have you heard of this next band?" I said, "No, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's another Quill." And they get up and they start playing. And this white bread suburban kid who's never heard anything like this before. There's more than one drummer in this band. Why is there more than one? There's more than one drum. And there's different kinds of drums. And then there is that electric guitar. And there's an organ. And there's all kinds of things. And oh my goodness. And I think 500,000 people had basically the same reaction. Because this band is Santana. And when Santana finishes Soul Sacrifice, 500,000 people stood up and gave a standing ovation. I hope someday you get that opportunity to be in the middle of 500,000 people in a standing ovation. It is a physical event. The whole atmosphere was moving. And I took that 35mm camera and I took a picture and I took another picture. And the music continued. Sometimes people ask me, who was your favorite band? Who are you here to really see? And my answer to that question basically is The Who. They had released Tommy, the rock opera, earlier that year. And I was hoping they would do some of Tommy. And they came on about 3:30 in the morning and did basically all of Tommy. And then the sun came up right over there. If we were a little bit higher up, you could see off the Best Road and all the camping that was up there. And it's 6:30 that morning, and the Who have finished, and the Jefferson Airplane are about to come on, and I raised my camera and took another picture. And I get to brag a little bit, because if you were to go into the museum today, right behind the ticket counter there, the welcome counter, you'll see about a 20 by 10 foot enlargement of that sunrise picture. It's a new dawn. It's a new dawn. Because that's what it was. When I say that, I'm quoting the Jefferson Airplane. All right? It's a new dawn. And yes, every dawn is a new dawn, of course. There's never been that dawn before. But by that point, we felt that we had done something that had never happened before. Unintentionally. We did not know we were coming here to make history, of course. Nobody usually knows that. But we accidentally, serendipitously did. The Jefferson Airplane finish, it's 10 o'clock Sunday morning. Noon on Saturday with Quill till the end of the Jefferson Airplane, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. That's Saturday's show. I'll do the math for you. That's 22 hours, one show. That afternoon, Joe Cocker comes on. He's the opening act. He's the guy when you're out in the parking lot and somebody says that hey, the opening act's gonna be on in about 5 minutes. Who is it? And they name that name and you go, I'll have another beer. And then you go in, all right? That's who Joe Cocker is that Sunday in a sense. He's the opening act for Sunday. But he's Joe Cocker and we all know him today and he did a fabulous set and he's in the movie and became famous through the movie as well. After Joe Cocker, I'm not trying to jinx anything here. I don't think it's possible on a day like today. It gets dark, it starts to rain, and it pours. And now 500,000 people are tired and hungry and looking at their watches and saying, I better get the car home because Dad'll kill me. I got to get to work tomorrow. And about 470,000 of us begin to leave because on Monday morning, when Jimi Hendrix finally comes on to close the concert, there are 30,000 people here. So that's my story, a piece of my story. Thank you for listening to it, and if there are any questions, I can certainly try to answer anything.